What's up? Welcome in, everybody, on this Tuesday night, this edition of the Rebel Report. My name is Michael Borky. I appreciate you being here. The baseball team, Ole Miss baseball, just wrapped up getting smoked, quite frankly, in the midweek before their first SEC series. Is that a sign of things to come? Maybe not. Usually it isn't. Midweek games, as you know, are treated a little bit differently, especially Ole Miss. The personnel that they used on the mound leads you to believe that they were more focused on being ready for Arkansas this weekend. However, it's not who they pitched. I saw some online conversation about who they pitched and that being a problem. It was more about how they played in the field. Awful. I mean, just absolutely awful today. Did not allow themselves to have a chance to win this game with the poor defense that they played behind any of the pitchers, really. And was it a lack of focus? Was it, team looking ahead to conference play? Being 14-2 right now is absolutely something that is a good thing. There's no doubt about it. But the way they played leaves a bad taste in your mouth as opposed to just losing a midweek. It's how they looked in doing so. So, important weekend upcoming. Obviously, Arkansas in Oxford. That's a big series and an opportunity for Ole Miss to continue to keep momentum rolling. The competition level has dramatically increased this weekend. And again, losing one midweek game is not going to hurt you really at all. But you don't love the way they looked tonight for sure. So that's not why you're here, though. Now, you're here to talk about spring football. It is over, at least as you know it, in Oxford. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin have ended the Grove Bowl. It is no longer a thing. They are replacing it with something, though, and I like what they're doing in place of the game. So we'll talk about that and more on this edition of the show. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and wherever you get your podcast, search Rebel Report, and subscribe and leave a rating and a review. And this edition, and every edition of the podcast, is presented by the Gregory Law Firm. DJ Gregory, he's in Fulton, Mississippi, but he can take care of you anywhere in the state for personal injury. If you've been personally injured, do not waste another second. Wake up tomorrow. Call DJ Gregory at 662-397-9799, 662-397-9799. Also, if you're a small business owner and you have a legal situation that you need help with, or if you want to start a small business and you want to make sure that you've got your I's dotted and your T's crossed, or if you're in a contract dispute situation, again, DJ Gregory of the Gregory Law Firm has got you covered at 662-397-9799. Don't delay, call DJ today. So, Ole Miss cancels the Grove Bowl. The spring game, if you will, is no longer, at least as long as Lane Kiffin's the coach at Ole Miss. Maybe whenever that day comes and there's a new head coach, maybe they want to bring it back. I don't know. But I do know that the spring game is gone. Here is a quote from Lane Kiffin, by the way. I saw this first at the 24/7 site that covers Ole Miss. Maybe he gave this quote to everybody, but that's where I saw it, and that's how I got this here. Here's the quote. In keeping with our program's pro mindset, we are taking a business-like approach with our spring drills with the focus of improving as a team. After careful thought, including the timing of other spring events, we determined it was best to not hold a spring game. I can't read, guys. We look forward to hosting a fan day for the Ole Miss family to engage with our players on a personal level. So, more on that last part in a second. I don't know about you guys. I know that the discourse around this is mixed. Mostly people saying that the spring games are a waste of time and stuff like that. I don't agree with that sentiment. And I understand those of you that have never cared about it, don't go, don't watch. Like, I understand. I'm not going to try to tell you you're a bad fan or whatever for not caring about spring football. That's not what I'm doing here. But me personally, I found value in spring games. I find value in spring games, even as just a football fan, right? I love the game of football. I watch as much of it as humanly possible. I watch games featuring teams that I don't care about. I watch Tuesday Night Maction. I'll watch everything, right? I watch as many of the NFL games as I possibly can. I try to get to high school games on Friday night. I love football. And even though spring games and spring football is not serious, it's not a real game, it's not something that you should really, put a whole lot of stock in, right, when it comes to the prospects of your team. I loved watching them. I watched every team in the SEC spring game, and I loved going to them, both as a kid and also as a college student. I thought any opportunity given to me to go sit in the stadium and watch football, even if it was basically a practice, was a good day. I love sitting in football stadiums and watching football. So the fact that one fewer time exists for people to go do that, I think is a sad thing, especially when you consider that there are a lot of people that go to spring games when that's really possibly anyway the only time that they can get to the stadium and go see the team play because it's cost effective. We hear from listeners on the radio show all the time, people that maybe they can go to one game a year, and sometimes it's really tough for them to go. Even, I mean, like Ole Miss, the Georgia State game is going to be sold out. I mean, the tickets for that aren't going to be like super cheap. So there are people on tight budgets. Hand up, I've got one. I've got a really tight budget myself. That use and take advantage of the opportunity to go to the stadium for free and take their kids to the stadium for free to see football, right? And those people won't have that opportunity anymore, and that also makes me sad. And then from a content perspective, to tell you the truth, spring games were an easy couple of days worth of radio, right? So it helped me from a professional perspective as well. But I found value as a sports fan in them. And it does make me sad, honestly, that the tradition of spring football is going away. I don't like it. This is disappointing to me, that the opportunity won't exist for you guys to get a good look at Austin Simmons as the guy on that field. Obviously, he's played on that field, but as the guy. And for you to sit there for a couple hours and watch him sling it around in a controlled setting just to build hype for this team and specifically your quarterback, and just enjoy a day in the stadium. So I don't like that this process is going away. I understand why it's going away. I think the tampering excuse is kind of cheesy, to be honest, because your roster is going to get tampered with regardless of your spring game and if it exists. But I understand why it's happening. I get why Ole Miss has done this. Last year's spring game wasn't a game at all. Ole Miss, frankly, was kind of ahead of, they were ahead of basically everybody else in college football on this, for better or for worse. They kind of made a mockery of it last year, and they're not doing anything at all. So I don't like that. I would like it a whole lot worse if it was not being replaced with a fan day that is free. It is a free fan day. So the post here, I'll bring it up just in case you guys didn't see this, if you want to make plans to go. April 12th at 1 o'clock Central. There's also a baseball game later that day as well, but April 12th at 1 o'clock Central is when they're doing the fan day, which is the first time since 2019 they've done the open for everyone fan day. Now, it doesn't say that every player will be there. I'm curious if there's an NIL issue that prevents some from going. And if that's the case, that's a shame. So I'm preemptively angry about something that may not happen. But if players do skip out on that because they're not getting paid to do it, if they don't, that would be an embarrassment, in my opinion. There is one day where you can engage with your fans without getting paid for it. You're getting paid to play for essentially them, and they're the ones that are paying you. So I hope that doesn't happen. I've not heard that it will or won't, but they did not mention specifically that the entire team was there. What it says is April 12th at the Manning Center to meet current Rebel football players. Not that the whole team, but just current players. But anyway, we'll see how that shakes out when it does. But at least that's happening. You guys know me, and the radio audience definitely knows this because I rant about it all the time. I am very pro-fan. I think of the fans first. You guys matter the most, not only, to me, because it's why I make a living, but also I think sports fans in general are mistreated by everybody. I'm not talking about Ole Miss here. I'm talking about everybody. You are taken advantage of. You are asked to pay more, and more. And you really don't get anything in return. And what you get in return is reducing. They ask a lot out of you guys, and they don't give you really much in return. I think sports fans are disrespected by the people that they patronize, generally speaking. And programs and organizations, whatever, sports teams, pro, college, whatever, should spend more time engaging their fans, especially the ones that don't have the $1 million in their pockets. Right? Again, back to the radio audience, we hear from listeners all the time that feel like because they don't have a lot of money that they're not important. And I think that's a shame. And I think colleges in general are short-sighted on what attracts people to their product. And the more they take and the more they take and the more they take, it's you're not going to get the negative results of that for a long time. I mean, years from now, we've talked about this before. I love football and I love sports because of the experiences I got to have with my dad. That's why I love sports. It's because of the time that I got to spend with my father, right? And he took me to everything because we could. Sports were far more accessible back then. So when you price, like my neighbor, I've got a neighbor who's a line worker, right? If you price people in my neighborhood out of games, because I'm in the same boat, right? I can't take my son to games the way my dad did. I don't have a lot of money. And so people in my world, right? You're asking more from us than you ever have before, and you're pricing us out of it. And so they're going to stop going. And you're not going to notice it for a while because little Johnny is going to find something else to fall in love with because he's not getting the same experiences that I got when I was a kid. And that's happening everywhere. So you're not going to see the negative results of people getting priced out for a while. It's going to be the kids of this generation growing up not having the same connection to it because they didn't do it every Saturday. You know what I mean? That's why doing something like this to me is important. So if you're not going to have a spring game, credit to Ole Miss for putting on something where all a fan has to do is donate their time to go do it. And the people in my neighborhood that, love their team but are on the same budget as me, can go bring little Johnny to the Manning Center. And it costs him the gas to get there, but that's it. And that kid can go meet his favorite player and establish a connection back to that team, as opposed to not getting to go to games and, not having any access. And because of the portal, it's harder to keep up with who's on your team and stuff. That moment that's going to happen for a lot of kids is what's going to keep them connected to and loving Ole Miss. That's why I loved Furman so much when I was a kid. It's not because of the games. It was because the fan day, because I got to go get a bunch of stuff signed from players. I think I've showed you this ball before. I mean, I'm about to be a 33-year-old man, and this is one of my favorite memories. All the way back in 2001. I was 9. I'll never forget the day that the Furman football team signed this ball for me. I'll never forget it. It's one of my favorite things that's ever happened to me, absent the birth of my child. I loved that day, and I'll never forget it. And that's kind of what kept me in. That's the kind of experiences that fans need to have to fall in love. Just going to the stadium is not going to be enough. And so good on Ole Miss for allowing this to happen, because especially the lower income fans are feeling left out. And this is the first time in 6 years they've had an open fan day. That's too long, but at least they're having it now. Apparently Kiffin's going to talk, and maybe a few others are going to talk to the crowd as well. If you're not going to have a spring game, doing something like this is absolutely necessary, what's needed. And I'm very happy that Ole Miss fans, and especially the kids, are going to get to have an opportunity to go meet their favorite players, because that's what will allow them to fall in love with your school and your program forever. And it's about time that they woke up to the idea that they were allowing people to feel disconnected. So I know that was a lot of ranting about just a fan day, but it's something that I'm passionate about. So please forgive me if that was obnoxious. We'll get to your comments after I tell you the podcast is brought to you in part by Toyota of Brookhaven. Exit 40 in Brookhaven, or online at toyotaofbrookhaven.com. You can check out their online inventory. I know the car buying experience is a frustrating one. It is a scary one. It's an intimidating one. And you want to do it with somebody that will take care of you, that will look at you like a person. And that's what happens at Toyota of Brookhaven. You're not just dollar signs, you're a human being. So it'll be worth the trip, but you can look at their online inventory before you get in the car and go down there to see what they've got. Again, toyotaofbrookhaven.com. Tell them I sent you $1,000 off. $1,000 off if you tell them I sent you any in-stock new Toyota. $1,000 off. They also have a service department Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., and interest rates as low as 1.99% for 48 months on all in-stock Tundras. Check them out, Toyota of Brookhaven, exit 40. Again, tell them I sent you, and you will actually have the rare, good car buying experience, because that's what they do at Toyota of Brookhaven. They deliver. To the comments we go. Appreciate you guys being here. This is going to be a bit of a shorter one tonight, but we'll do some reaction. Also, Thursday, SEC tournament, Ole Miss plays the winner of Arkansas and South Carolina. That game happens at noon, so immediately after, can't go live because the radio show starts at 3 o'clock. But we'll just react to that game on Thursday night together. So here we go. Bianco was kind of alluding to Arkansas already. They seem to lose these types of games every year, take 2 of 3 from the Hogs, and everyone will be jumping. Absolutely. I mean, if they have a good weekend this weekend, what just happened doesn't matter at all. It did, though, look like a team that was distracted. Or maybe not distracted, but not as focused as they should have been. College football is dying a slow death, and I don't care one bit. Well, Thomas, I have a feeling that you do care. I have a feeling that you do care because you're here listening to somebody talk about college football. But no, I'm with you. I understand. And that sentiment's not a rare one. I mean, I see so many fans say something like that. And while when the games happen, they still feel the same, there's a disconnect. And stuff like this, a fan day, can help reinvigorate that. I think they can do even more and do a better job at making fans like you, Thomas, feel connected to your team. The portal doesn't really bother me much, in part because I'm perpetually online, so it's not hard for me to keep up with who's on the team and who's not. I follow it, and it's my job, so that helps. The money doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is that it has to come from you, the casual fan, but they're working on that. So at least Meet the Rebels isn't a Grove Collective exclusive event like last year. Exactly. All you need to donate your time. That's good. Shame what's happened to the spring game concept in general. I'm with you. Like I said before, I agree. I actually find value in spring games. I enjoy them. They're fun for me. I have good memories just hanging out in the stadium, watching spring football, walking over to the baseball game, having a beer. You know, that was a good day. You know, that was a fun day, and I'm with you. Ole Miss is fortunate to be winning on a high level in football right now. Some other programs are in really bad spots in the current landscape, and I don't know how they climb out of it. The timing of Kiffin and winning and stuff like that with this new era is massive. And you'll look back 10 years from now and realize that if that wasn't the hire, or if he doesn't ultimately turn Auburn down, despite how weird that thing got at the end, the situation that Ole Miss could be in. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be expecting more, right? That you shouldn't be disappointed about how last season ultimately ended up and things like that. But yeah, I mean, you look around college football, and there are other fan bases that are really down bad, and I think it's easier to disconnect than it's ever been. Now, nobody ever supported losers. That's one criticism of like this era in football, where I think is a little bit goofy, where people say that, well, you know, once you lose some games, fans are going to check out. When has that not been the case? When have fans stuck around to watch their team lose every game they play? It's never been a thing that's happened. But I do think they're making it easier to disconnect. There's no doubt about that. So Ole Miss winning right now it's so important because other fan bases and other programs were not winning when this happened, and it's going to take longer. It's harder to get people to buy into not a great product in the way that they're now required to buy in. I don't mean to pick on them. It's just true. I mean, Ole Miss is raised growth costs rather significantly for people, but you don't have to do that to go to the game, right? Mississippi State raised ticket prices. They go 2-10 and they raise ticket prices. And I understand the house settlement. They got to find $20 million and all that. But man, you go 2-10 and you have to raise ticket prices. Could you imagine being the fan that got that email, that sat in that stadium and endured a 5-touchdown loss to Toledo, and you watched your team lose all of those games, get Arkansas putting 60 points up on you on your home field and enduring what they endured as fans, and then you get the email saying this is going to cost you more next year. Now, I know the schedule that they've got's a pretty good one in terms of name brands, but that's also the problem. They have a schedule that's brutal yet again, and you're telling them they've got to pay more? It's so easy for someone to be like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. They're not good on the field, and now you're telling me that I got to spend more to go see them not be good? I'm out. So, easier to check out than ever before, for sure. Actually considering a graduate thesis next year on the disastrous landscape of college sports. It's such a mess. And this topic isn't interesting to everybody, of course, but I love it. I love talking about it. Because of how simple it could have been when everybody knew that it was coming years ago and the NCAA didn't act. They could have gotten out ahead of this and collectively bargained, and they chose not to. And now they're still begging Congress, who's never going to do anything for them. So, an angle that you can take on that thesis, and they've got to be long, but it's the absence of leaders willing to make difficult decisions that preserve themselves in the long run. Instead, they just kick the can down the road and kick the can down the road. They knew it was coming. And you want to know how I know that they knew it was coming? Because I knew it was coming, and I'm a nobody. There's a lot of people that work in this business that knew, quote unquote, knew it was coming because it was obvious to everybody. But all they did was just whistle past their own graves. And look at what happened. So what happened in college football in particular, but in college sports, football has the next layer because of the playoff, right? The NCAA doesn't control the playoff. Now suddenly the SEC and the Big Ten do. The conferences did. Weird deal. The absence of leaders willing to come together and make difficult decisions that would ultimately preserve their product. Instead, they delayed and they didn't act, and poof, all of their power is gone. So they blew it. They're why this is that. Too many people blame the players and think it's their fault. Oh no. It's the people in charge. It's the conference commissioners. It's Greg Sankey. It's Tony Petitti. It's everybody. Every conference. Brett Yormark, who's talking about expanding the basketball tournament today. Everybody involved in this failed. All of them failed. And they're lucky. They're very lucky that all of you love it as much as you do. But like I said before, you love it. You're bought in. You're like, it's ingrained in part of your life. If I can't bring my son to sporting events, he's not going to love them because he doesn't get to experience them. And so that's what I'm afraid of. It's not now. It's his generation. It's 10 years from now. Do you have the same buy-in? They're taking advantage of you now, and they're not thinking about what's going to happen to them later. But enough of that. I know some people get so sick of that conversation. I love talking about it. But anyway, hope the weather will be good for baseball series, Mike, because there's a severe weather risk. Yes, there is. It's the forecast for Saturday especially is problematic. So I'm curious to see if they're looking into playing a doubleheader Friday or Sunday. Sunday looks clear. Could be some weather on Friday. I know they don't want to play doubleheaders for sure, but yeah, we've got some weather coming through, and I am curious as to how they're going to handle it because it doesn't look great. So we're basically expecting Arkansas to play Ole Miss. Do I have a prediction on that game? Yes, I think Ole Miss will come out and play well, and Arkansas will be dead-legged because they only play 7 guys, right? I mean, their rotation is basically not at all. And I expect Ole Miss to win that game and then turn around and lose to Auburn rather comfortably the next day. So I think they'll go essentially 2-0 in the tournament, which is probably what's best. I don't think losing in the first game on Thursday, although from a health perspective, that might be the best outcome, is just only play one game and go home. I do think that, especially after what happened in Gainesville, although I don't necessarily see that as a problem, as we talked about, continuing to have this March momentum, right? They get the Oklahoma win where Padula's the hero. They get the Tennessee win where Breakfield's the hero, and they storm the court. To continue to feel good and to execute and to win basketball games, to be playing your best ball in March, I think that they have an opportunity Thursday to continue that. And I would be shocked beyond measure if they get past Auburn. But that's how I think it'll shake out. They'll beat Arkansas and they'll lose to Auburn, and they should be able to get some good rest essentially for a full week and get a good draw in the tournament and maybe win a game or two. Nebraska defied the thesis that fans will not turn out for a team that is regularly losing. True. They are an exception. They are not the rule. And they've had this massive sellout streak that they're so proud of, and they've had to have wealthy people buy up some tickets to make sure that they keep that streak alive. They're an exception. Ohio State didn't fill up every home game this past season. So if all these ADs are expecting their fans to never go away, they're wrong. I think they're wrong. Good to see you, Jerry. Glad you're doing well down there in Pascagoula. You think they upgrade the risk of severe weather to a level 4? I have no idea. You are asking the wrong guy here. The times that we have to do the weather updates on the radio show, I'm exclusively relaying information that is said by the smart people when it comes to that. I have no idea if that is something that they're going to do. I don't know. Did I airmail the crud that I had? Oh, I hope not. It's allergy season too. That's coming up. I saw the pollen growing on my my pine trees in the back too, so that'll be fun to deal with here coming up. Oh man, the inside of my house, I've got dark floors in here, and there's 3 big pine trees in my backyard, huge pine trees. And I mean, I don't leave doors open, right? But I have to open the door periodically to let the dogs in and out of the house, right? The yellow that my floor turns because of those pine trees out there is depressing. I mean, and it just destroys me too. So I've got that coming, but I think I'll be able to manage it better than I did last year. But yeah, everybody gone on spring break. It's funny. Growing up in South Carolina, maybe it's just a South Carolina thing or what, I don't know. But spring break was not a big deal where I grew up. I don't remember like a mass exodus of people for spring break the way it happens here. I mean, I've got people in my neighborhood that are gone for the week. And so I'm just not used to this. I mean, you could tell in our radio audience there was just fewer people this week, and it's like that every year. Considering just about back to the messages, considering just about everybody in 2024 had a bad loss makes it look different for Ole Miss. Kiffin consistently won close games, and last year was the only year he didn't, which is ironic. with how much talent they had, but Kiffin is a top 10 head coach, and that shouldn't change. He's just got to figure out that offense and get it back going like when they had Corral. Here's the thing, though. Nobody lost to Kentucky. Only Ole Miss in the SEC lost to Kentucky. Kentucky's infinitely better than Michigan. Or excuse me, Michigan's infinitely better than Kentucky. And that's Ohio State's bad loss. And losing close games, 2 of which on the road, can tell you that maybe the teams were evenly matched and they got outcoached. They certainly got outplayed in certain spots. I think 2 things can be true at once. Kiffin I think he's a top 10 to 15 coach, probably 8 or 9. If you were hiring a coach today, I don't think you could get past 8. Logically, anyway, get past 8 before you'd want to have him coach your program. But also, I think last year was ultimately they came up short as a result of coaching, specifically on the offense. They weren't prepared to play Kentucky. They scored 1 second-half touchdown in their 3 losses. The defense was ready to play every week. They gave them a chance to win every single game every week. They lived up to expectations. It's his baby that didn't. And that's fair to say, and that's fair to question, and it's fair to spend your offseason wondering why and wondering if they can fix it. He can. I mean, he's got the pedigree for it, right? But still. The coming up short of last season rests squarely on his shoulders. That doesn't mean he's not doing a great job at Ole Miss, though. You're praying that Ole Miss gets Tristan Keys. Hey, high school recruiting feels like the trend is moving back in the direction where high school recruiting is more important. Because players, in this portal cycle, more players stuck around. So, little one's about to go to bed. Enjoy that, Colin. Enjoy that. Soon they're going to make bedtime a disaster. So, enjoy that, man. Appreciate you being here. Tunsil to Washington, DK to Pittsburgh, Carr to stay in NOLA. The players this week, and the Masters is soon. Yeah, the Masters commercials are flowing right now. I'm very happy for Laramie Tunsil getting another sizable contract. He's a good guy and a great player. And as we talked about on here, a few weeks ago, he was done really wrong. And for him to have the career that he's had is a big middle finger to the person that tried to sabotage his career, because would love to know what that guy's doing now. DK to Pittsburgh is interesting as hell. He got paid, which, is the most important thing. Huge contract for a receiver. Are they going to bring back Russell Wilson? Are they going to draft somebody? Maybe Jackson Dart. That's a good spot for Dart, I think. That would be a dream scenario for him, in my opinion, based on who's needing a quarterback. And that keeps shrinking, the number of teams that need one. Seattle's now off the board. The Jets may be. I would still consider drafting one, maybe early second for them, or trade back late into the 4th or late into the 1st. Interesting stuff all around. Carr staying in New Orleans only because of his contract, not because they want him. All of the outward talk about them, he's their guy is BS. It's a contract situation, and that's it. He'll be gone next year. And yeah, I'm excited about the players too. I'm just going to sit my butt on the couch and watch it all day on Sunday. Nick Saban should run against Tommy Tuberville for the Alabama governor. I don't know this. I think that Nick Saban would run for a party that would surprise some people. But anyway, do I think Beard and company will get to the Final Four? Not this year, but a coach like him will get whatever program he's at to the Final Four if given enough time. I think he will get it. Look, he could take the Indiana job this year, but I do think that if he stays at Ole Miss in perpetuity, he will get Ole Miss to the Final Four. I do think he's that good. Yeah, I think he's that good. I think he will ultimately get Ole Miss to the Final Four if he sticks around long enough to see that through. Yeah. But anyway, I got to run, guys. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We'll be live on Thursday night. So not immediately after the game, obviously, radio show, whatever. But we'll be live Thursday night to recap Ole Miss's first game in the SEC tournament. See y'all then.